Alan Rickman was one of those rare actors who could completely control a scene without raising his voice or making dramatic movements. Long after his death in 2016, people around the world still return to his films and remember the calm power he brought to every role. Many know him as Professor Snape from the Harry Potter series, while others remember him as Hans Gruber from Die Hard or Colonel Brandon from Sense and Sensibility. No matter the role, Rickman always brought intelligence, emotional depth, and quiet intensity that made his performances unforgettable. But behind the famous voice and legendary characters was a man whose life was shaped by hardship, discipline, patience, and personal struggle. Alan Rickman was born in West London in 1946 into a working-class family. His childhood was far from easy. When he was only 8 years old, his father died, leaving his mother to raise 4 children alone. The family struggled financially, and those difficult years deeply affected him. Friends later said that Rickman carried a deep understanding of sadness and human emotion because of what he experienced early in life. Unlike many actors who dream of Hollywood from childhood, Rickman's path to acting came much later. Before becoming an actor, he studied graphic design and worked professionally in that field for several years. He was talented and successful, but he still felt something important was missing from his life. At the age of 26, when many actors are already trying to build careers in film, Rickman decided to completely change direction and apply to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art in London. It was a risky move because there was no guarantee of success, but he believed that meaningful work required courage. During his years at drama school, he developed a careful and controlled acting style that later became famous. He learned that silence could sometimes be more powerful than shouting, and that small details often create the strongest emotions. Those lessons stayed with him throughout his career and helped make him one of the most respected actors of his generation. Before Hollywood audiences knew Alan Rickman's name, he had already built a strong reputation in theater. He spent years working on British stages, especially with the Royal Shakespeare Company, where acting was treated as serious art rather than simple entertainment. Those years taught Rickman discipline, patience, and complete respect for language and storytelling. People who worked with him in theater often spoke about how much attention he gave to every line and every movement on stage. One of his most praised performances came in the stage production Les Liaisons Dangereuses, where critics admired the dangerous charm and intelligence he brought to the role. The success of the play eventually brought him to Broadway and helped him gain attention outside Britain. Even during this time, Rickman remained very different from many celebrities. He stayed deeply private and avoided the chaos and attention that often follow fame. He continued living in London and never seemed interested in becoming a typical Hollywood star. His long relationship with Rima Horton showed this same sense of stability and loyalty. The two met when they were teenagers and stayed together for decades before finally marrying in 2012. Their relationship remained quiet and mostly out of public view, which matched Rickman's personality perfectly. Friends described him as thoughtful, intelligent, and emotionally steady. By the time he entered the world of cinema, he was already mature both personally and artistically. He did not arrive in Hollywood searching for attention or trying to discover who he was. Instead, he entered with complete understanding of his craft and a strong sense of confidence. This made his move into film acting feel natural and effortless. Many actors spend years trying to develop a screen presence, but Rickman seemed to understand it immediately. Audiences quickly noticed that he did not rely on exaggerated emotions or loud performances to command attention. A single look, pause, or change in his voice often carried more meaning than an entire page of dialogue. That rare ability separated him from many actors and prepared him for the film role that would completely change his life forever. Alan Rickman's first major film role came in Die Hard, and it remains one of the greatest movie debuts ever seen in Hollywood. At the age of 41, when many actors already worried they may never become stars, Rickman suddenly appeared as Hans Gruber and completely transformed the idea of a movie villain. Instead of playing the character as a loud and violent criminal, he created someone calm, intelligent, charming, and deeply dangerous. Hans Gruber felt threatening because he always seemed to be thinking several steps ahead of everyone else. Rickman understood that true fear often comes from confidence and control rather than anger or shouting. His smooth voice, careful movements, and sharp delivery made every scene more intense. Even today, many critics still consider Hans Gruber one of the greatest villains in movie history. The famous ending scene, where Gruber falls from the building, became one of the most iconic moments in action cinema. Behind the scenes, the filmmakers surprised Rickman by dropping him earlier than expected, so they could capture a real reaction on his face. The shock audiences see during the fall was genuine, and that realism made the scene unforgettable. After Die Hard became a massive success, Hollywood quickly realized Rickman's talent. However, there was also a danger that he would become trapped playing villains forever. Many actors spend their careers repeating the same type of role after one success, but Rickman refused to allow that to happen. He constantly searched for characters that challenged him emotionally and creatively. In Truly, Madly, Deeply, he revealed a softer and more romantic side that surprised audiences. Then in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, he moved in the opposite direction and delivered a wild, theatrical performance filled with dark humor and energy. His Sheriff of Nottingham became memorable because Rickman fully understood how to balance danger and comedy at the same time. During the 1990s, his reputation continued growing through films like Sense and Sensibility, where he played Colonel Brandon with quiet emotional depth and dignity. Once again, Rickman proved that restraint was often more powerful than dramatic emotion. He trusted audiences to notice small details, and because of that, his performances felt deeply real and human. One of the reasons Alan Rickman remained so respected throughout his career was his incredible ability to move between drama, comedy, romance, and tragedy without ever losing his unique style. Many actors become predictable after years in Hollywood, but Rickman constantly surprised audiences with the roles he chose and the emotional depth he brought to them. In Galaxy Quest, he gave one of the funniest performances of his career by playing an actor who feels trapped by the science fiction role that made him famous. The comedy worked so well because Rickman treated the character's frustrations seriously instead of turning him into a simple joke. His dry delivery and perfect timing transformed ordinary lines into unforgettable moments. Around the same period, he appeared in Dogma, where he played the angel Metatron with a mix of intelligence, irritation, and exhaustion that only he could create. Rickman understood that comedy often becomes stronger when actors perform it seriously rather than trying too hard to be funny. Then came Love Actually, one of the films that introduced him to an even larger audience. In the movie, he played a husband whose poor decisions slowly damage his marriage. Rickman avoided dramatic speeches and instead allowed guilt and sadness to appear through small facial expressions and moments of silence. One of the most heartbreaking scenes happens when Emma Thompson's character realizes her husband may have betrayed her emotionally. Rickman says almost nothing during the scene, yet audiences can still feel the pain, regret, and emotional distance between them. That ability to communicate powerful feelings without words became one of the defining qualities of his acting style. Directors loved working with him because he trusted the audience's intelligence and never forced emotions unnaturally. Co-stars often describe him as generous, supportive, and deeply thoughtful on set. Younger actors especially appreciated the patience and kindness he showed them during difficult scenes. Despite his growing fame and success, Rickman never behaved as though he was more important than anyone else around him. He treated acting as serious work and believed everyone deserved respect. By this point in his career, he had already won major awards including a Golden Globe, a BAFTA, and an Emmy. Yet many people admired him just as much for his professionalism and kindness as they did for his extraordinary talent. Although Alan Rickman had already built a legendary career before the Harry Potter films began, the role of Severus Snape introduced him to an entirely new generation and made him one of the most recognized actors in the world. The character was extremely difficult because Snape needed to appear frightening, mysterious, intelligent, and emotionally damaged all at the same time. From the very beginning, Rickman understood that Snape was much more than a simple villain. Author J.K. Rowling secretly told him important details about the character's future, including his hidden love for Lily Potter and the truth behind his actions. This private knowledge allowed Rickman to shape the role carefully from the first film onward. When audiences now return to the earlier Harry Potter movies, they can notice sadness and pain hidden beneath Snape's cold behavior. Every pause, stare, and quiet reaction carries emotional meaning, because Rickman already knew the full story of the character. Instead of playing Snape with obvious anger, he portrayed him as a man carrying years of emotional pain, loneliness, and regret. This made the final reveal in Harry Potter and The Deathly Hallows Part 2 incredibly powerful. The famous line, "always," became one of the most emotional moments in the entire series, because Rickman had spent years building toward it through subtle performance choices. His work transformed Snape into one of modern cinema's most unforgettable characters. Younger viewers who grew up watching the films often described Snape as frightening at first but heartbreaking later, which showed how successfully Rickman guided audiences through the character's emotional journey. Even outside Harry Potter, he continued choosing challenging and serious roles. In Sweeney Todd, he played Judge Turpin with disturbing calmness and control. In Eye in the Sky, one of his final films, he portrayed a military officer dealing with the moral consequences of modern warfare. Once again, he relied on quiet emotion and subtle acting rather than dramatic speeches. Even near the end of his career, Rickman continued refining his craft and searching for emotional truth in every role. That dedication explains why performances still feel timeless and powerful even years after his death. Away from movie sets and cameras, Alan Rickman was known by friends and coworkers as a deeply thoughtful and caring person. While many celebrities carefully build public images for attention, Rickman preferred privacy and honesty. He enjoyed discussions about art, politics, literature, and theater, and many people who worked with him describe him as highly intelligent but never arrogant. Younger actors especially remember how safe and supported they felt around him. During the Harry Potter films, several cast members later shared stories about his kindness and encouragement behind the scenes. Daniel Radcliffe often spoke about how supportive Rickman had been toward him throughout the series, treating him with respect even when he was still a very young actor learning the industry. Rickman understood how difficult fame could become for child actors and tried to protect younger performers from unnecessary pressure. He also quietly supported charities and social causes without seeking publicity or attention for it. This side of his personality rarely received as much attention as his acting career, but it mattered deeply to the people who knew him personally. In 2015, Rickman received devastating news when he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. He chose to keep the illness private, telling only close friends and family members. Even while dealing with serious health problems, he continued working as long as he physically could. People close to him later described the calmness and dignity with which he faced his illness. He never turned his suffering into a public event or asked for sympathy from the media. Instead, he handled the situation quietly, much like many of the characters he portrayed during his career. On January 14, 2016, Alan Rickman passed away at the age of 69. The reaction around the world was immediate and deeply emotional. Actors, directors, writers, and millions of fans expressed genuine sadness, not simply because a talented performer had died, but because many people felt they had lost someone personally meaningful to them. Social media filled with tributes, favorite scenes, and emotional memories connected to his films. It became clear that Rickman's influence reached far beyond awards and fame. Audiences had formed real emotional connections with him through his performances, and those connections remained strong even after his death. More than 10 years after his passing, Alan Rickman's legacy continues to remain powerful because his work still connects with audiences in a deeply human and honest way. Some actors become famous for a short period before slowly disappearing from public memory, but Rickman's performances seem to grow even stronger with time. New generations continue discovering Die Hard, Harry Potter, Love Actually, Galaxy Quest, and many of his other films while feeling the same admiration audiences felt decades earlier. Part of this lasting impact comes from his unique acting style. Rickman never relied on trends, flashy performances, or temporary popularity. Instead, he focused on emotional truth, intelligence, and careful control. His characters felt believable because he understood human weakness so well. He could play villains without making them feel cartoonish, and he could play emotional scenes without becoming overly dramatic. This balance gave his performances a timeless quality. Another reason people continue loving Alan Rickman is because the kindness and dignity he showed in real life matched the honesty audiences saw on screen. In an industry often driven by ego and attention, he remained calm, private, and thoughtful. Fans respected him not only as an actor, but also as a person. Even years after his death, stories about his generosity and support toward others continue appearing in interviews and documentaries. That kind of reputation cannot be created through marketing or publicity. It only comes from years of genuine behavior and respect toward others. Cinema has a special power because it allows artists to remain present long after they are gone. Every time audiences watch Hans Gruber enter Nakatomi Plaza or Severus Snape walk through the halls of Hogwarts, Alan Rickman becomes alive again for a few hours. His voice still carries the same intelligence, humor, sadness, and authority it always did. That is why his story continues to matter today. He was not simply an actor who became famous. He was an artist who understood people deeply and used that understanding to create performances that continue touching millions around the world. Alan Rickman left behind far more than memorable characters. He left behind a reminder that true greatness often comes from patience, intelligence, kindness, and a quiet confidence to remain completely yourself. Even after his death, Alan Rickman's influence on modern acting continues to be felt across film, television, and theater. Many younger actors openly admit they studied his performances to understand how to create emotion without overacting. Rickman proved that an actor did not need constant movement, loud shouting, or dramatic speeches to control a scene. Sometimes the smallest reaction could become the most unforgettable moment. This quiet style became one of his greatest strengths. Directors trusted him because he always understood the emotional